into our program of time. We would welcome you and introduce the event. We'll talk about house rules and we'll talk about safety, as we always do. There will be SP, safe start. And then after we explain that today is a safe space. There will be an opening address from our committee head. Then we'll dive into the main discussion. There'll be question and answers where we have more discussions. People will share more recommendations, ideas. They're all professionals here. And then the students, the young professionals, experienced ones, everyone shares their ideas. Then we introduce upcoming events to you and give a voice of them. So the things we want to note for today, important notice. We're going to mute everyone to mute their microphones unless you are called to speak. When it's time to speak, kindly raise the hand, use the icon, raising hands, and then you'll be given the opportunity to speak. Um, we would not speak during the speaker's keynote discussion until it's time for question and answers. But then if there are questions, kindly put them in, kindly put the questions in the chat and we would address them right after the keynote speech. So yes, safety. Today's safe start from SP is on fatigue management. So we'll do a quick overview on that. Fatigue reduces alertness, slows reaction time, and increases the likelihood of errors and accidents. When you have long hours of work, you do not have adequate sleep, you are highly stressed, and then there are more physically demanding tasks. You are fatigued, and your alertness to work reduces. You know, we are engineers, and when you are reacting slow to work, when you are reacting slow to alerts, you are going to cause a lot of problems with your colleagues and yourself in terms of accidents. Few key risks that are associated to fatigue matters. There's reduced concentration and poor decision making. You're hardly going to make good decisions when you're feeling sleepy. You're hardly going to make good decisions when you're very tired. And then we have all experienced that in our life, right from school and through work. You react very slow to alerts. Even if you hear a fire alarm, you may be very slow to react because probably very tired in your sleep. There's increased chances of slip and trip when you're climbing, and then you may use a different technique, or because you are very tired and you're fatigued. And also there's high likelihood of driving or operating machinery incidents. These are signs of fatigue, especially for those of us who those of us who want to always say that, oh, I'm not tired. I'm still strong and I want to continue. When you are frequently yawning or blinking, you are fatigued. When you have difficulty with focusing or you keep zoning out, and for team leads, you can take note of this too. When you see your team members frequently yawning or blinking, when they have difficulty focusing or they are constantly zoning out, when they are making poor judgments occasionally, that means that their workload over the days has been too much for them, and then they are irritating everyone overly. They are drifting between lanes when you are driving, are fatigued, and then forgetting steps or making simple mistakes. These are what SP recommends for us to do when we are fatigued. First one is to prioritize rest and recovery. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. We know that majority of us are doing so many things. You have extra curricular activities, you have students, you have church to go, you have friends to meet, We are working, there's family to take care of, there's too much work sometimes even at work, and you may not get time to sleep. But as much as you can, you're advised to take 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Take regular breaks during long tasks. If you're tired, talk to your team lead and take regular breaks. Avoid consecutive long shifts if possible. This is for the team leads to keep on encouraging your team members to take on more shifts because probably there's someone who did not come or there's overload of work. Then the other one is to manage workload and environment. Rotate demanding tasks to avoid mental or physical overload. Safe space for team. Once you understand that the meeting is a safe space for everyone, um, in our SE, from students to young professionals and experienced professionals, we are all one, and share ideas, ask questions once we come. Even though we've been advised not to ask questions during keynote speaking, you can just put your questions in the chat once they come up. We'll address them in due time. It's a safe space. Even if the questions are outside of what we are talking about, if there's time, the keynote speaker will address them, or the leader of the committee will address them. And yes, on Zoom, you have the opportunity to, if you don't want to talk in terms of personally, you can just react with an emoji on how you're feeling about the meeting, how you're feeling about the discussion. We are we are hopeful that the meeting will be a joyful one, to be all happiness, fulfillment, and contentment. So today we are not getting so really red and blue emojis. We're hoping for yellow emojis today. But then if you are genuinely dissatisfied with something, kindly just mention it and then we will address it in subsequent meetings. We invite our leader of the team, Engineer Daniel Opong. He's the deputy chair of the Career Guidance and Outreach Committee, to give us an opening address to today's meeting. Daniel, kindly introduce yourself. Daniel, please, we cannot hear you.
What about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, this is fine. This is fine now. This is fine now.
Okay, okay. With my field in operations engineering, operational excellence is one of the things that I'm very, very, very passionate about. And it's one of the reasons why, as a team, we came together to help other young fellows and upcoming engineers to understand what it means to ensure continuous improvement in daily operational activities so that at the end of the day, we can achieve our operational goals and operational effectiveness as well as operational efficiency. And we have on board an expert who has been in the field for quite a number of years and is willing to share his experience with every one of us. And so I want us to keep our notepads by our sides, take relevant information that will help us to thrive in our workspaces. So I wish you good luck, enjoy the conversation, ask questions, and let's connect more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I would introduce our speaker for today, and then we'll head into the discussion, head into the chemistry. Engineer Samuel Percy Oposu is a seasoned mechanical engineer and oil and gas leader with over 60 years of experience delivering complex, high-stakes drilling and completions projects across Africa. Samuel currently serves as a rig superintendent with Tullow Oil and is the first Ghanaian in Tullow to lead large, multinational, and multidisciplinary rigs, managing over 400 professionals on ultra-deep water state generational drill ships. He has successfully led HPHT and extended reach drilling campaigns with daily operational costs exceeding $1 million, achieving over $88 million in project cost savings, while maintaining an outstanding safety record of more than 3 years without lost time or recordable incident. Samuel's leadership is strong, underpinned by his academic and professional development. He holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Columbia University of Science and Technology, an MSc in project management from Robert Gordon University in the United Kingdom, and completed the advanced management program at the China Europe International Business, graduating with distinction as part of Talos Executive Team Leadership. Beyond his technical and leadership roles, someone is deeply committed to mentoring the next generation of engineers, having trained and coached over 20 young professionals now, serving in leadership positions across and beyond the energy sector. He's an active member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers and the Energy Institute in the UK, and also the Ghana Institute of Engineering. Our keynote speaker for today is really experienced from the introduction I've given. He has had all possible types of experiences from economics to money handling to team handling to academia and then to handling very high level technical work. We are highly expectant of him and we are hoping to learn him very well about operational experience. Engineer Samuel Foster, kindly on meeting. So I would stop sharing my slide.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Samuel, for the introduction. Let me put a disclaimer that yes, a lot of good work has gone into leading the team, but it's a team effort to achieve some of those successes. So I'm happy to be here this afternoon to engage with the session on operational excellence.
Thank you, sir.
Are you sharing the slides, Samuel?
No, we cannot see your slide.
Okay, let me do it from here then.
Yes, please, you can share your slide now.
One second. Apologies, the system is preventing me from sharing, but I'll get to it. Are you able to see by any chance?
Not yet. We are still waiting for you.
Emma Oli Klim, do you have a copy of the slides?
I did share it earlier. For whatever reason, my system's privacy settings is preventing me from sharing
Right.
screens.
So let's share it from my side. Maoli Klim, can you please share the slides from your end?
All right, I'll do that shortly.
No, his presentation slides. Excellent.
All right, we are good to go.
Okay, one second. Good. All right. Apologies for the technical glitches. Uh, First time trying to do Zoom on this system, and I need to adapt the privacy settings to allow Zoom to share content. But I think operational excellence has been talked about in many ways. If we focus on it, it helps us to appreciate how to run a sustainable business. And the aim of this session today will be to try and go through the core components of operational excellence, look at some of the tools that are available to us in managing those core areas and supporting continuous improvement and successful delivery of an efficient service across board. It will be more generalized, but then the sort of background stories and information will be tailored to most of what I do in the oil and gas industry. So if you don't mind, Samuel, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, you did do an introduction of me earlier. Just to confirm, everybody hears me clearly.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes,
Perfect.
please. It can be heard.
Just thanks for confirming. So myself, as Samuel introduced earlier, I'm a rig superintendent with Talo currently, and been in the industry for a good part of 16 plus years, working in various sections. Didn't start in the industry background, mechanical engineering, started off engineering practice with Guinness in Kase, Kumasi, working on industrial refrigeration plants and utilities management, basically, so tearing apart compressors and all of that. Then moved on to do a bit of work in the free zones with what is now called Wilma, the managers of Freital when they started up, or the current manufacturers of Freital when they started up. Then Acha Daniels and Wilma, ADM and Wilma Industries in the free zones as a utility superintendent. So within that space in 2008, oil and gas was discovered. And in 2009, the opportunities arose for most engineers to join the oil and gas industry. And at the time, those that had passed out, mostly mechanical and civil electrical engineers, made inroads into the oil and gas industry. And that's where I found myself subsequently. So you see the pictures there, myself working on refrigeration compressors back in the days and industrial boilers as a utility superintendent with my team. And on the lighter side, as a good friend to the president of Ghana in my early days in the oil and gas industry, we were blessed with a visit from the then vice president of Ghana to the rig. So got a good shot so that I could brag around in years to come that I'm a friend of the president. So little, that's the bit about me. The job though that I take seriously mostly, and is that I'm a full-time husband and a father to 3 kids, and they give me all the fulfillment that I need. Next slide, please. So if we are to look critically at the topic for the day and ask ourselves what operational excellence is, we will realize that it's purely how we eliminate wastage from day-to-day operations and make it more profitable and valuable to customers and all the stakeholders within an organization. So with every organization that you set up, the core function is to meet customers' needs. And that product delivery needs to be in such a way that it is of quality, but of the right quality, but at a reduced cost. So it's key for us to ensure we are meeting the customer's needs in that regard. Whilst doing it, we need to ensure it is safely done so that everybody else within the value chain comes in to achieve what they set out to achieve and goes back safely to their families. So safety is key. And then also it has to be efficient. What's the point in creating products that do not generate profit or that generates a lot of waste and minimizes our profit? And when you go through it all, you can't have any operational excellence without people. So it has to be people-centered with the right attitudes and cultures, the beliefs that people would exhibit within the organization are key to ensuring that we achieve operational excellence. But key to it, it has to be repeatable. And we can't have a system being operationally excellent that does not stand the test of time. That, in its case, is luck. And when you ride on luck, you are bound to fail eventually. So you want to eliminate reliance on luck and focus on the processes that help to deliver operational excellence. So today, I'll ask you in your various establishments and companies to think through as we go through the presentation where you lack consistency as a business, as an entity, as an organization, as a team. Where is there lack of consistency? Is it within the quality of the product? Is it within the time frame to deliver or the lead times? All these are key in ensuring that operational excellence is achieved. So next slide, please. One would ask, though, why does it matter? Why do we need operational excellence? And I think on the previous slide, I've sort of touched on all of these, because in this environment that we find ourselves, most of us find ourselves in the oil and gas industry. Oil and gas industry operations are mostly dependent on external financiers and loans. If you run an operation that is not environmentally sustainable, you are not going to get the needed support and leverage to be able to deliver your products to your customers. And nobody wants to partner with an unsafe business. So safety and environmental sustainability are key in making sure that currently, as people transition more towards green energy, we are making sure that our impact on the environment is as low as reasonably practicable. Then there is the need to ensure reliability. If I can rely on the service you produce, I'll constantly be returning to you as my preferred supplier. If there's no reliability within your processes, be it on quality or on delivery timings or anything else associated with your operations or service delivery, then you risk losing all your customers to competitors. So reliability is key, making sure that we are constantly delivering to the needs of our customers. Operational excellence ensures that that happens. Efficiency comes into a lot of play when we come to cost management and cost effectiveness. So the two go mostly hand in hand. Why waste time on processes that do not yield any value when you can invest in processes that yield value? So making sure that the processes are as lean as possible and as cost effective as possible is key. At the end of the day, we've spoken about the need to satisfy the customer. So customer satisfaction is delivered through operational excellence. If they trust you, they will continue to come to you for your services. If customers do not trust you, then you are bound to lose out on them. So how we manage these requires that we implement operational excellence principles in getting us to meet customer requirements whilst reducing our cost base. And in all of this, it helps us to continuously improve on our delivery. Continuous improvement is one that you cannot leave out or sort of underestimate. And most times you realize small but consistent gains yield greater value and impact than unsustainable large jumps. So when you practice operational excellence, it helps us to be able to achieve all of these benefits as an organization. So when we run through our businesses, there's always the challenges that we face. And the question I ask them is, what keeps you up at night, regardless of your position within the organization or the value chain? What keeps you up at night? Where do you need to see improved to ensure you've got the peace of mind to invest your energies elsewhere? So let's delve into these issues as we progress. Next slide, please. We'll start looking through the core pillars of operational excellence. Every organization needs strategic leadership and a vision to drive growth. And for those that are familiar with the Nokia story, Nokia used to be a leader in mobile handsets, and through leadership failures, they lost their position, and these days Nokia is nowhere to be found. But Nokia is still in the background, and it will surprise you to know they are making a lot more value now, but not in handsets or mobile phones, but in back-to-back networks and network infrastructure in general, after a decisive strategic decision by a new leader to move away from handsets and focus purely on network infrastructure. And these days, they are market leaders, but nobody hears of them because they are constantly in the background working away and delivering value to their stakeholders. Now, when we go through operational excellence, the sort of leadership and vision drive that leads it helps to set the right parameters for progress. And the next pillar then that comes with it is process optimization. An inefficient process or a wasteful process costs money, and no business owner wants to lose money. So when we set up a business, we want, in as much as possible, to make sure that the processes are as lean as possible and as efficient in their delivery. One of the other core pillars is the satisfaction of stakeholders. I've mentioned it severally today because we are here to generate value. Without your customers, you do not exist. Your business collapses. So customer satisfaction and value creation is a constant requirement for a business to survive. But for all these to happen, you still need people to be able to deliver all of this. So how you empower your business, your team, how you empower your people and make sure that they are well equipped to deliver on the job is key in how we are able to achieve operational excellence. Now, whilst we are doing all of that, we need to be able to measure ourselves against some metrics. So we need to be able to ensure that performance management is key in everything that we do. We are monitoring how we are performing against our set metrics and also against the industry peers or our competitors. How are we faring? Are we delivering value in terms of our performance? Continuous improvement keeps running through the team because it's a valuable side of sustainability. If you don't change and evolve and adapt to changes within the environment in which you operate, you are going to fail, like the way Nokia failed in handsets. Now, we are lucky in this day that most change that we see is driven by technology, and data is king in these days. So how you use data to your advantage is also key in operational excellence. And for us to be able to achieve excellence, we must see technology as a friend and not a foe. So next slide, please. At the core of everything that we do, we need operational excellence. And these pillars help us to attain operational excellence. Next slide, please. Yes. So our topic today was on a toolbox guide to operational excellence. And so to help us run through some of the tools to categorize operational excellence into the 4 key toolbox categories: our process and workflow toolbox, risk and safety toolbox, performance and reliability tools, and then the people and organizational culture tools that will support us to achieve operational excellence. So we will examine what is within our various toolboxes today. Now, when we talk about processes, the best process you can have is the simplest process possible. And evaluating your processes to ensure that they are simplified, they flow smoothly with no bottlenecks, no wastages within the process is very core to operational excellence. When, for instance, we set out to drill a well, in the time that we have been drilling in Ghana, we've gone through various processes aimed at optimizing how we deliver our wells. Now, one of the optimizations maybe in the in the operating procedures that we use. And when you have different people in how we operate in the oil and gas industry, where different people rotate within the same roles, it is difficult to maintain consistency. And it's very easy to recognize the changes that happen when people change out. And so to be able to manage some of those, one of the things we have done in our operations is to standardize our work instructions and to make sure that regardless of who is there, the standard requirements are in place and any additions and subtractions can be made with minimal effort and minimal changes to how we operate. It's taken a lot of effort. It's taken a lot of learning over the years to achieve that. But when we hand over a work instruction to a driller, he is able to pinpoint exactly what the requirements are because the details are in there, and it's very easy to produce that instruction because we've standardized how we develop them. Without that, you will have to spend hours generating work instructions. And if you want the processes to be well defined, you need to control how the operation goes. And until you are clear in what you expect people to do, judgment calls can cause failures within the process. And so for us, that has been one valuable place where we've made improvements. When we come to the area of managing the failures that we've seen within our operations, we used to get a lot of what you call damage beyond repair bills. And whenever we drill, because of the abrasiveness of the formation, we tend to damage some tools very badly. That poses a lot of cost to how we operate. So what did we set out to do? We set out to investigate what was causing those failures and implement systematic changes that then yields value in eliminating those tool failures and ensuring that our time to drill is optimized. MPT is minimized, DBR bills are minimized, and everybody is happy. We are delivering value to our stakeholders in terms of delivering wells within budget. Our client, third-party suppliers are not running around the globe trying to establish the logistics of moving new tools across to try and meet timelines because all the tools are getting damaged. But to be able to achieve that took a whole process of studying what we do and how we do it. Now, so to be able to work on most of these processes, it's essential that we break it down into smaller chunks and run through the ins and outs of the processes, understand where the constraints are, and put in place measures to eliminate those constraints. One of our major constraints was DBR bills and damage to tools. That constraint, we had to systematically go through a process of finding engineered solutions to eliminate this. And it's yielding massive results currently for us. Now, when you are able to eliminate the clumsiness of the processes and remove any redundant processes or any bottlenecks from the process, then you need to work on standardizing these processes. How do you standardize these processes? By putting it into writing such that regardless of who is available, it is able to operate in the way you want it to operate. It is simple, easy to understand, and it's a standard for everybody to follow so that people are not deciding they want to do it one way and the other person doing it the other way and yielding different results. Now, once you've been able to go through all of these, you need to also ensure that the process is owned. Tools that help you to achieve all of these, most of us have heard of lean mapping, Six Sigma, and the rest. Visual process mapping that helps you to go through your processes and eliminate wastage. I've spoken of the work instructions and standard instructions to drillers. The 5X of Kaizen, which was a tool developed after World War II to help revive the Japanese economy, and one that has been improved upon and is being used by the likes of Toyota within their production lines. So all of these help you to be able to deliver on what you need to do. As you do all of these, it's integral that you do after action reviews. When you make a change, don't just be bundling up changes. It's important that you review what has happened after each job, be it a standard job or a change to a process. Review every activity within your value chain and see what can be improved. Because through that, we're able to pick up opportunities that help us to make the systems better. There is always room for improvement, which is why continuous improvement using the PDSA methodology is another tool where you plan, you execute, you study the outcome of the execution, and then you put in place next lines of action and act upon them, and then go through the process again to plan how those next lines of actions will be implemented to be effective. Then once you've executed it, you go through it, assess it, and pick out what other improvements can be made. So constantly you are using it to improve your processes. Let's look around our various processes and see if we can identify one process that as an organization we can declutter, be it reliance on, for instance, artificial intelligence to help you to minimize the level of reporting. Most of us are swamped up in reporting. That takes away time from actual value addition jobs. Some of those reporting can be done with artificial intelligence. Are we leveraging on that technology? So think through your process, see how you declutter some of those processes. Now, operational risk management and safety forms a key part of our toolbox when it comes to delivering operational excellence. How we manage our processes can either make them safe or unsafe. And process safety is key. Risk identification proactive risk identification and mitigation can save a business from collapse. If we constantly assess the risks that are posed to how we deliver our business, we will be able to avoid most of the train wrecks that happen. But in our part of the world, mostly we have the farmer nyame mentality, where we refuse to look any further than what the surface provides and think that with that we'll be able to continue producing and avoiding the challenges that we faced previously. If you look at what happened in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010 with Macondo, you would appreciate why process safety is key. For most businesses, they would have been done. Most businesses would have been finished if it wasn't to the size of BP, because till date, the whole process of recovery from Macondo has cost a total now of over $65 billion. How many businesses can withstand such failures? So if we don't manage the risks and the challenges that are posed to our businesses in a systematic and engineered manner, we risk losing our businesses eventually, because we will end up in a train wreck. Now, when we address all these risk concerns, we know that we are able to deliver high-stake operations. We're able to deliver efficient operations in a very safe manner that helps us to move forward on a day-to-day, delivering without setbacks that move away from our core functions. When there is, for instance, an incident in an operation, that operation mostly shuts down for a period and runs through a process of recovery. When we address our operational risks, challenges, and safety risks that we face, we are able to ensure that all of these operations move smoothly. So operational safety and operational excellence will always move hand in hand. You can't have an efficient operation without it being safe. So if you want to achieve operational excellence, safety has to be at the heart of your operations and must be owned by everybody within that operation. Now, how do we do that? We need to set clear guidelines, KPIs on what we want to achieve. We need to be more focused on the leading indicators than the lagging indicators. Proactive investment in safety and risk mitigation helps us to avoid the train wrecks, as I've described with Macondo. So when you go through most EHS processes, some of the key leading indicators are the amount of awareness meetings we create, how much training and mentoring we pass on to the team, how much audits and inspections we do, how much of detail in risk assessment, and the mitigations associated with those risks to minimize the risks to as low as reasonably practicable that we implement is key in making sure that these leading indicators help us achieve operational excellence. Lagging indicators are more reactive and tell us how we are fared in certain areas, but we don't want to have incidents to learn from incidents. One of the core tools that in recent times we've been championing is learning from normal work to try and eliminate the risks that come with normal work and operations. So we measure all the lagging indicators, but ideally we need the efforts in the leading indicators to ensure that we are avoiding the events that happen to lead to numbers going up within the lagging indicators. How we plan our operations is key. And when you look at some of the tools that are used in most operations, one such tool is the Step 7 work process, which tells you that starting of the job is not the first step. To be able to properly execute the process and deliver a product, starting the job is not the first step. You need to properly plan. You need to communicate the plan to all those involved. Do that through advanced planning meetings, review of the SOPs and work instructions that you issue out. And then you need to make sure that you invest time in assessing the reliability of your tools. Are the tools fit for purpose? Are the equipment that we are trying to use fit for purpose? Now we need to make sure that we control energy. Isolations, are isolations required within what we are doing? Have they been implemented? How is the process being managed? All of that is critical before we can start an operation. Then we need to then walk the line, walk through the process. Have we covered all ground? Until we are satisfied that we've covered all ground and had the needed peer reviews, work should not be starting. So being double checked is something we all need to embrace. When I got into the oil industry first, it always felt like people didn't trust you when they wanted to double check your work. But in actual fact, it's a way of building trust when you have somebody else peer review or double check your work. It helps you to ensure that you've not missed anything that with fresh pairs of eyes, they can pick up. They pick it up, you improve before it develops into an issue. By so doing, you have worked to improve your processes. You have worked to de-risk your operations and make it a safer operation. And for tools that we use, there are various tools available. These two I have highlighted with the KPIs and then with the safe work processes. One other tool I will touch on will be the management audits and reviews. As leaders and safety leaders, we shouldn't be sat in the comfort of our offices. We should have a short presence or have more presence on the ground with the team delivering the operations to ensure that what we set out to do is set up in the same way we expected it to be set up. And with that fresh pair of eyes, we're able to remove any risks that are associated with that process. So it's key that we do regular audits, reviews. We analyze the trends within our processes and ensure that proactively, if there is a creeping trend, we are picking it up. As a superintendent, one of my day-to-day jobs is reviewing the hundreds of cards that people put in on the rig. And we have a very stringent regime where we expect currently 90% of the people on our rig to put in an active card, a care card, depending on which institution you're working in. And all these cards come in to help us review trends. When they come in, we don't just take the numbers and say, yes, we are doing well in numbers. On a daily, before I engage with the rig, I go through every single card,
look at the trends that are developing. On a bi-weekly, I sit with the team, the rig leadership. We go through the trends that are developing and try to put in controls to avoid anything escalating into an incident. It also helps us to get feedback when we go through all these processes, because sometimes people are able to go through the anonymous systems available and feedback on potential risk to our operation. If you've been involved in some of the operations, you would realize one of the threats, especially at the end of campaigns, is how people get their severances. People lay down their tools because of disagreements on severance packages. Sometimes we're able to pick this from the trends of cards that are coming so that we engage with the right stakeholders to eliminate it and make sure that processes go on without the wastage of non-productive time because everybody is shut down. In doing this, we need to make sure we empower people to speak up and own all the tools and processes we put at their disposal. One such powerful tool, and I'll touch on today, is the use of stop work authority. In my operations, whenever I visit the rig, one of the key messages to the team, and I spend a lot of time out there on deck with the people doing the work in the hot sun, in the rain, trying to get them to understand that they've got my backing to stop the job, regardless of who is telling them to cut corners or do jobs that are unsafe to do. So stop work authority is one key tool that if you have an empowered team, you can use to drive risk management and ensure safe operations. Because even if you stop and the perceived hazard is not what it is, what have you lost? You've really not lost much. What has happened in that time is that you have reassessed the operation. You've taken a proactive time out to look at everything that you set out to do. And if everything is okay, kudos, move on. But we need to ensure that people do not fear the risk of being unnecessarily targeted in our operations when they intend to do the right thing, when they intend to speak up, when they intend to stop the work. As leaders, and I speak to all of us as safety leaders, it's key that the people around us know that they have got our backing to be able to do the right thing, regardless of how much time it takes. As long as we are not wasting time and are being efficient, it will take as long as it has to take. But we will not cut corners to be able to deliver a service, because that sort of process is not sustainable. And we've said operational excellence has to be sustainable. So audits, management, everything that you do as a leader, you need to make sure your people buy into it and are tuned in with you in how you expect them to work. Do not play with risks. Make sure you are spending a lot of time looking at risks, looking at hazards within your operation, and putting in place controls to eliminate those hazards. One, I'll spend a bit of time here because this risk management side of our operations is key to how we deliver operational excellence. And when we we have used the Noble Ventura for quite a period of time, starting early 2018, when we signed the contract with it late 2017, December. And subsequently, it left in 2020 for COVID. Then it came back again in 2021. And we realized that in a space of 8 months in 2022, we had almost 5 LOPCs, loss of primary containment. And when we looked at our process, we know the rig, we've used the rig, we didn't have those issues previously. Why are we having those issues? It took a lot of work to try and dig down to the root cause. And one incident in particular, which was one that was on the back, basically a day apart from one other incident. Loss of primary containment, nothing to the sea, but some people see it differently, that if it's contained within the spaces you are operating, it's still a containment. I disagree with that assertion. If it's outside of its primary medium of containment, it's lost primary containment, and that is it. And we need to give it every importance it takes. So if you were the rig contractor, you wouldn't be happy, and Noble or Maersk at the time were not happy. So we set up a team to investigate the incidents. And that last incident, on face value, looked so much like the DFO, or what you call a derrick man on some rigs, was at fault. On face value, it looked like the man was at fault. But, and before we started investigating, there was a lot of prejudice comments against that. Yes, they didn't do the right thing, which is what led to the event. Then we went into the detail. Then we realized that when you actually pull out the trend screens, and I spent a bit of energy doing that because I wanted to appreciate what was happening, and I had the background of being a drilling supervisor for most years, so going through trend screens was easy. So I went through the trend screens myself, annotated all of them prior to, during the event, and after the event. And it will shock you that what we had was not an incompetent drilling fluids operator or a DFO, but a flawed process. And when you remove all the chaff and dig through the actual details, and you find that, then you can implement change, proper change that is lasting. So we set out to work on some of those findings, and with clear recommendations and actions on the rig contractor to work with us in improving the process. Interestingly, most of the things we identified had happened in other operations that the rig contractor works on. So other rigs for the rig contractor had experienced similar failures like we had. And they were working with BP then. They had put in processes already. So if we were managing changes across the business, or if the rig contractor was managing change across the business and sharing knowledge across the various installations, it would have been easy to implement some of those improved processes. We went ahead, implemented those, and we completed the campaign without LOPCs. Those processes still exist, and we keep reviewing and making sure they are robust. But at the time, initially, we were going to blame it on one individual, change the individual, and what would have happened? We would have ended up with another incident with a new person, and we would keep changing people when the actual issue has not been resolved. So how we share knowledge and manage change across a business, how we investigate incidents, and manage the risks identified within our operations are key to management of operational excellence, to ensuring that our processes are flawless. There will potentially be inherent flaws, but that is why continuous improvement is there. But as flawless as possible, we need to ensure that we are drilling down to the root causes of events and not just running a surface run system where we look at surface value and we move on. So doing detailed root cause analysis can help as an institution to know where the failures really are, rather than putting it purely on the wrong systems or components, which may not be the key architects of the failure. Because once you do that without going through the process, it's not sustainable and you are bound to fail again. Hopefully, with the tools listed below, the risk assessments, the incident investigations, how we manage permits. Most people are familiar with Piper Alpha on permit management, how we do our toolbox talks and make sure that we use the step 7 process that I spoke about, how we review trends within our operations using our daily card systems, and how we empower our people to use top work authority. We will continuously be improving our processes and driving closer to operational excellence. Next slide, please. Now, performance and reliability management. The only thing I'll touch on here is what we measure is what we can then assess and see if it's fit for purpose. If we don't measure, we can manage it. So how we deal with data from performance is key. We can't deliver operational performances that are within the excellence range without managing data effectively and collecting adequate data on our operations. So we need to be clear what we are measuring ourselves against to start with. What are the KPIs we've set for the team? Is everybody aware of the KPIs? What sort of data we are collecting? No emotions attached. We have to always ensure that everything we do is driven by what we see within our processes. And when we do that, we constantly will then be able to ascertain how long it takes us to move from A to B. As a driller, wait times are important to me. Spend a lot of time looking at connection times in our operations. And we realized we were spending quite a considerable amount of time on connections by using tools that require us to be stationary to take a survey. So our engineers did an assessment and engaged with our support functions or our partners, SLB, on how we can minimize our connection times. And the outcome of that was the implementation of a dynamic survey tool in our operations. And as we speak, in the last 2 wells that we've used this dynamic survey tools, the cost savings from the static surveys that we used to make, if you are running, say, 10 minutes for a survey to happen, and then you look at the number of connections you do to be able to drill to TD. Even if you have 40 connections within that process, that in essence is 400 minutes of savings. On operations where your spread rate is within the $1 million mark, you are looking at a considerable saving on that 400 minutes. So we have seen benefits by just engaging with our key stakeholders. We measured our performance on slip times, looked at what other people were doing, and we were like, yeah, we think we are efficient, but there seems to be room to improve here. And that process of identifying a solution happened to enable us to get to where we are reaping the benefits. And if you do the cost-benefit analysis, it is a huge benefit to us compared to the extra cost we have to pay for the tool. So when we measure ourselves, we are able to then see if there is wastage within our system and eliminate such wastage. We also are able to establish some level of consistency in how we do business, and that ensures that we are constantly delivering on our targets. When all this is done, is your customer satisfied? Are your stakeholders satisfied? As an organization, the end goal is to be profitable. Are you meeting that goal? Realize that purely on the example I gave, we are saving millions per well on drilling time just by implementing a technologically advanced tool. So look through your processes, measure yourself against defined KPIs, and establish what needs to change within the business. Various tools have been mentioned down here, how we state and view our KPIs. In some organizations, when you enter the office, you see a clear dashboard on the screens of how they are performing. It keeps everybody walking in and out of that office on their toes about what the expectations are and where they stand within the expectations. Continuously monitoring how we operate can provide efficiencies and reliability within our processes. Most companies now are moving from OEM manual-based plant maintenance schedules to condition-based monitoring PM schedules, where on one side, they are able to predict failure before it happens. And then on another side, they are able to save money on some processes that if you were meant to change a hose that does no critical activity, but it's very expensive annually, and you go on a condition-based monitoring and agree with the OEM that based on the condition, it can be on a 2-year changeout or as and when the condition deteriorates, and agree the right parameters to making that work. The OEM signs off on it. You've saved money and made your operation more efficient, and you are making sure that you are keeping tabs on the equipment to ensure its reliability. So that tool helps in ensuring that there is efficiency within the process of maintenance and reliability. How we manage and track costs, how we break down our NPTs, non-productive time. Non-productive time is the biggest chewer or consumer of costs, because you are not generating any value at that time. It's non-productive because there's no real productivity coming from that time that you waste. And so if you can eliminate non-productive time to as low as possible, it generates a lot more value for you as a business and a lot more savings. When you work in a highly competitive industry like what most of us work in, you need to be able to compare yourself, not just to your KPIs, but also to what your peers are doing. For us, we use the Rushmore reviews to survey how we are performing in dry hole days and other parameters across Africa and the region in which we operate with our peers. That helps us to challenge ourselves to do better if we see the opportunities or inefficiencies within us. If we maintain a silo mindset, we will not be able to identify opportunities for improvement. When we looked at our slip-to-slip times, we looked at our connection time, we identified the need to change by comparing to what other facilities installations were doing, and we've implemented the change that is yielding value. So how we use competition to our advantage is to pick on the positives that they are getting or delivering to their businesses. Sharing ideas on technology, sharing ideas on performance improvements is key to making sure you have a reliable operation. Without that, everybody will develop and leave you behind. The world I've already touched on is highly data-driven now. And so how are we leveraging on artificial intelligence, machine learning in most of our operations? These days, there are services that help you to improve your rate of penetration or ROP times by basically learning how your drilling operations go and trying to optimize the parameters within your drilling operation. And these are machine learning models and AI integrated models that help you to improve on your performance. Oil and gas industry, we are mostly stuck in our ways, but we also know that when we leverage on technology, we get a lot of value out of it. So let's use all those tools available and manage the way we operate in our business if we want to deliver consistent success and reliability to our stakeholders. Next slide, please. Now, we spoke about one of the key functions of or pillars of the operational excellence being the people. And with every team, you have different people, but the composition of your people is key to how you deliver the success. Are they competent? Do we have the right people in right positions? Are leaders being strategic in their leadership? Because leaders will define the strategy and which direction we need to move in, and everybody will follow. Without the right leaders, we spoke about the Nokia story. With the right leader, they are making inroads in other areas than what their previous core offering was. Because with the wrong leaders at the time, they ran that business down and they couldn't compete anymore. Leadership is key, and how we train and empower our leaders is essential. Most of us in the engineering space find ourselves into leadership positions purely based on our work performance and not because we are trained in leadership. We need, as organizations, to be intentional about the sort of leaderships we create and drive leadership that is strategic in delivering operational excellence. Now we get to the members and how they operate. If we are able, we realize that when we pull ourselves together as a team, what happens there is that we all have core competencies that we bring on board the team. Your core competency may be someone else's weakness. So if we are able to synergize all those core competencies into delivering and overcoming the individual weaknesses that we hold, we are able to deliver operationally excellent results. How we do that is encouraging an open culture where there is open engagement within the team. A culture where people take ownership of the business, not ejuma we aban ejuma yemfa nsua wodi so abeti obra na odi esi form. That mentality never works in any operationally excellent organization. It will never deliver operational excellence. We need to be intentional about harnessing the strengths of each of our key members, making people feel that they belong, that their voices are heard. That helps to enhance productivity. It helps for people to be able to stand up and challenge the status quo. Some in your organization, you would realize most of the changes that happen are driven by some individuals within the organization based on what they have seen within the process. if we do not encourage people to own the processes, to own the business, to own the vision that we have set out to achieve, then people handle it haphazardly and it leads to operational failures. But when people feel that they belong, they give their all, they ask the right questions, and they influence the results of the operations positively. Now, how we make this happen, we need to first, like I said, make sure the right people are in positions. Assess the competencies, but don't base it solely on competencies. Sometimes you look at the soft skills of somebody, their eagerness also to learn and unlearn, and you realize that he is a better fit for a position than someone else. Let's try and not just be CV viewers. There's a lot that you can put on a CV, but one trick that a professor into industrial management told me was, if you want, and I've used it a couple of times in helping people find the right candidates for jobs. So in one example, he set up an interview session with a group of people. But before the interview, he told them they will be doing a factory walkabout. Now, what he had done is cause some inefficiencies around the factory that were plainly visible if you were looking out for them, like not being able to have, for instance, a fire extinguisher where there needs to be a fire extinguisher. The air or the atmosphere within the factory being uncomfortable to work within. Then he walked all the candidates through that factory, interacted with those working, and then they came out and they were asked. All these were very qualified candidates. They were asked what their observations were. And those that are purely focused on the book and not on the entirety of the process couldn't identify some of those defects. Those that were built to challenge the status quo, to speak up, ask questions. I realized that was not in place. Why is it the case? That needs to be improved. This environment is not fit for people to work in. Why is the air conditioning in the factory not working? Why is this happening? And through that, they are able to select people that have efficiency at heart, people that love what they do and are constantly looking out for what is wrong to improve it. But if we had sat in the office and asked everybody to spew away on what their competencies were, you most likely would have selected the wrong candidates. So that sort of approach in finding the right people for roles is important. We need to be rounded in that approach to selecting people. Now, one philosophy that we live by on the Noble Venture is the one team. And the one team means that we work together for one goal. So, and I always use this example of when we are installing intelligent or smart completions, intelligent well completions equipment. And you would realize you've got Halliburton, you've got Baker Hughes, you've got SLB, you've got various actors in the game working side by side each other, assisting each other where it's needed the most. Why? Because if you help him to finish up well and do not impede his process, you get to finish early and the whole process finishes early. The client is happy. Results are achieved in a safe and efficient manner, and everybody goes home happy. So working as a team cannot be overemphasized. We need to make sure that the culture that we drive is one that is of a team mentality, where we see each other as being within one family without any competing agendas. The other ways of looking at delivering on people empowerment and culture is making sure that we are training people. How much as a business are you investing in your people? Do they have the right resources to be able to deliver on the offering? If they don't, then we need to look at it in another light. Let's also learn to incentivize positive behaviors. Let's encourage others to learn from the positives of other people and deliver consistently, because when you recognize somebody's inputs, they feel empowered to further deliver on the goal. And whenever they are doing it, they've got that recognition at the back of their minds that their efforts are not in vain. There is recognition of the positive inputs that they make. Next slide, please. So we said the one team always delivers the dream. To help us summarize more on what we've discussed today, I put down these thematic areas just on operational excellence to say we need to run a sustainable operation, a sustainable process, a sustainable organization. By that, we need to constantly deliver on the quality, on the safety, on the efficiency, on the costs. The cost pressures that we face on a daily are such that there is no way you meet your stakeholder requirements if you are not managing costs effectively. From my background, as working with an operator, if I go to an SLB and I say, I need you to bring me 3 of your Excel tools in country. I'll pay for 2, but the other one, keep it in your inventory. SLB looks at me and wonders, why would I do that? Because that third tool can be generating value for me elsewhere. To me, the value is for me to be able to leverage on it if there is a failure. To them, it's an inventory cost. So if you engage with your stakeholders, you're able to arrive at the optimal requirements for your operation. We have a primary, we have a backup. Do we have a contingency? Do we need this contingency? Or backup to the backup. How then do we ensure that both parties are benefiting from having these set of tools available? It's key to avoiding conflicts and ensuring that your energy is focused on delivering operational excellence. So stakeholder satisfaction is paramount, but it must be on the back of engagements. Engage with your stakeholders, understand their position or point of views, and try to work together to reach a fair middle ground that ensures that the processes are at their optimum level. You can't avoid risk and reliability if you want to be operationally excellent. The risks that we face, especially in the energy sector, high risk environment that we operate in, we can't sit there unconcerned. We always need to be on top of the risks. We need to be proactive about managing risks and delivering reliable solutions to our customers. Investing in your people will help you to drive the needed operational excellence. And it's key that you establish the right team and the right culture for the team. Continuously reviewing your processes with the aim to simplifying them and standardizing them helps you to eliminate bottlenecks, helps you to avoid inconsistencies in quality, in safety, in cost that happen when people change out. So let's simplify as best as possible and standardize our processes without compromising on the quality of our service delivery. Team strengths. Let's make sure that we avoid the silo mentality. Even with your competitors, learn the positives from them and use it for your betterment. And when you are setting your KPIs, make sure you are setting them against the best and you are driving towards the best. If you don't do that and you stay within your myopic view, you end up with a process where you do not know that you are actually inefficient. Because in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. But when he moves out, he realizes that some people have two eyes and are able to do a lot more with redundancy. Let's not forget to constantly evolve with the times and leverage on technology. Technological advancements are not our enemy. We need to constantly ensure that we are using it to our advantage. We are using it to declutter our processes. We are using it to take work off people's tables so that they can focus in the right areas and deliver the quality of service that we want them to deliver. And never stop improving. Never stop evaluating what you did, because we are only as good as our last known performance. So, in a nutshell, operational excellence is something that as an organization, as individuals, even in our homes, as different entities, especially in a high-risk environment like the oil and gas sector, we have no option than to infuse into our processes if we are going to survive the test of time. Thank you. Did see a question also pop up. If there is questions within the chat, we can address it, or if the moderators can open the floor. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Engineer, for the presentation. Grateful for the insights. So we'll move on to the question and answer session. But before we do that, I want to acknowledge the presence of a veteran in the SD Ghana section, Ato AD, also a section director. He has tons of experience in the wealth and drilling industry as well. You're welcome, Ato AD.
I salute, senior man.
Now we go ahead to the question and answer session. I would ask a few questions first, and then we go ahead to have a question or two from the listeners as well. If you are mentoring students or early career engineers, what practical steps would you advise them to follow to build an operational experience mindset from day one? Or in another way, because we are dealing with young professionals and then the career guidance and outreach. In your experience, what does operational excellence look like at the individual level, even for someone in an entry level or support role?
Thank you. I believe, like I stated earlier, regardless of your position within the organization, if we've established the right processes for delivering value, everybody within the team plays a valuable function. Now, operational excellence in your sector as an entry level may not be as high from your point of view as, for instance, somebody who's been in the business for 5 to 10 years. But from where I sit, I think as an entry level person, if I'm advising you, the core of that state that you are in is for you to absorb knowledge. If you are able to absorb knowledge and the right knowledge and unlearn the wrong behaviors which you've learned previously and constantly pick up the good behaviors, you're already excelling. Because when your development is in progress, it will be based on how much knowledge you've been able to acquire through that process of development. So you are entering at first, my advice, learn as much as possible, ask as much questions, because at that point, the expectations are minimal on you. And so you can ask so many questions, not feel there's never a bad question, but as human as we are, we tend to feel guilty when asking certain questions. The questions you don't ask now, 5 years down the line, the feeling will be worse if you ask them. So ask as many questions, absorb as much knowledge, and then make sure that you are controlling the space within you, which you find yourself. Continuous improvement is non-negotiable at the entry level. You have to be learning and progressing.
Thank you very much. And when we started the webinar today, our safety session was focused on fatigue. How do you balance excellence in operations with work overload from leaders, especially in the support role, where you are trying to do very well, to be excellent as a support, but then you have to balance it with communication when there's overload of work? How do you have that balance?
So to be able to manage those environments, and I am picking this on the basis that the work will be done. You've got a lot of work that needs to be done, but not everything needs to be done in the instant. There are ways of managing that. Prioritizing is key to minimizing fatigue. There are some jobs that do not need to be done in the immediate. There are some which are due on deadlines. If the right culture is established, one, you will prioritize on what needs to be done to be able to meet the operational requirements. If the load, however, is on the fact that there isn't enough resources and you are not empowered, and I gave the example of the DFO who prejudicially was blamed for the LOPC that happened. And then we went into it and found out that we had set him up for failure because we hadn't provided the resources. In the right culture, people are able to speak up. People are able to ask for help without fear of victimization. And as leaders, that should be something that we focus on, because when people are fatigued, they won't give you their utmost best. So as an individual, you make sure that you prioritize your tasks and deal with the important and time-bound ones first, and spread the others, call for help when needed, leverage technology when possible, and never fail to speak up. It's better to speak up than to burn out. And in this industry, I've seen people burn out and not be able to show up for work. Burnouts also mean that you are incapacitated in your thinking and you are a walking accident waiting to happen, a risk to the operation. So let's help people to deliver on their ends of the bargain by ensuring that the right culture is in place for them to ask for help when needed, and don't be shy to use it, even if the culture doesn't exist.
That's great. Thank you very much. So there's a question in the chat. I'll read it out. How do we get the right people in positions, as leadership positions, when the workplace is politically influenced?
Yeah, interesting. I think the leaders set the tone in all of these. And for you to get the right people in position, it means you must be a leader. And so you are selecting people. Now, if you are a leader, then your focus is on delivering the core value. So the best approach is to ensure that you've got competent people that have the right mindset in the right positions. Now, the politics of the workplace will mean that there may be preferences, but as a leader, it is your job to be as unemotional when it comes to competency and resourcing your team that as you can be. So you can't be a good leader or an operationally excellent leader if you are emotionally driven, if you are politically driven. So for you, the employee, your focus should be on delivering value for which you are hired to deliver. If people choose to play politics, leave them to play the politics. It's something that you can't live without. I spent most of my years offshore because I said I didn't want politics. I wanted to work 12 hours in a day, come out, and then go back to work afterwards without thinking about what's happening and who did what and who didn't do what. But you cannot run away from politics. Even in our homes, there is politics. It's how we manage it as leaders that creates the right environment for operational excellence to thrive. So leaders must avoid emotions and focus on competency when it comes to filling positions. Politics, we can't live without, but we can manage.
Great, thank you very much. Now we are opening the floor for questions from the listeners. Kindly raise your hand. I see the icon when you want to ask a question. We'll give a space for 2 minutes, a minute. When you're ready for a question, kindly just use the hand raising icon. So while we wait for questions, we would read out our survey questions. How would you rate the overall quality of the webinar? Okay, there's a hand up, yeah. Kindly unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon, sorry. This is Robert Tetra.
Good afternoon, Robert.
Yeah. So my question is, in terms of enabling, young ones that are entering the industry to adapt these, these points shared, how would you, as as an experienced personnel in the field, prevent these what we have this sunflower effect where sometimes we are in a meeting and I remember when I started, you go to CWOPs and DWOPs and you have people who've done like 40 years, and they say certain things and you're like, okay, this is gospel, and how do you encourage, the young ones, like ourselves coming up to, appreciate the fact that, look, there's nothing like a wrong answer, but you need to be brave in the face of all these maestros who are gathered in a room where occasionally you feel like, is my contribution going to make sense or going to help the team in any way, especially at pre-tires or ToolBox talks, at well sites or even at various workplaces. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. It's absolutely right. My first week in the oil industry, sitting in morning calls with people of varied experience who were all experts, and everybody was speaking English, but it sounded like Greek in my ears. And there is a certain level of intimidation that comes with that feeling. I think we have to encourage young people that as long as you are not lazying about, with time, you will develop the needed knowledge. If you put in the effort, you will develop the needed experience if you put in the effort. But there is no such thing as a wrong question. And as I stated, the question that as a new entrant you refuse to ask and you feel so bad about, in 5 years' time, when you ask that question, people will look at you with a different set of eyes, not because it's a bad question, but because they may expect you to know better. Even with that, you are better off asking the question than not asking at all, because if you ask what's the worst that can happen, you may get shut down, but you've exercised your right to speak and to engage. Leaders have a key role to play in these settings, mentoring and of young engineers, making them feel that they belong, will bring out such it will bring out the best from them, and they will be more willing to speak up if we make them feel part of the team. So if we run a team mentality as leaders where everybody's ideas are important and everybody can make an input without being shut down or victimized, people freely speak up. So we need to create an enabling environment for that to happen as leaders. But for every young one out there, let's make sure that we speak up and make our voices heard, because, like I said, what's the worst that could happen? I'd rather ask the question and get shut down than not ask, when I wouldn't be shut down in the end. I wouldn't know if I'll be shut down or not. I'd ask the question and get shut down instead. At least my voice has been heard. Use your voices, guys.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So there's one question in the chat. So we take two questions, one from the chat, and then Kofua would also ask one. All right. Section director too has a question. So let me read the one in the chat out first. What advice would you give to young employees who are navigating the challenges of workplace politics and cultural barriers, particularly in the industry where there's a mix of expats and locals and a male-dominated environment? How can they effectively manage these dynamics while maintaining professional growth and success and overall operational experience?
Thank you. I think we've said that workplace politics is something that we can't avoid in its entirety, but we can manage. as a young person coming up within the environment we work in, where it's multidisciplinary, multi-nationalities, we need some level of cultural awareness. And when I joined Talo as a young engineer, I remember there was a time when we got told that we were going for a cultural awareness session, mandatory. Everybody was not happy with being forced to go and sit in a session for cultural awareness. If you hear all the commentary around, most people were not happy. But then we went into the session, and it will interest you to know that there was so much that we didn't know about the people we were working with that posed as a barrier to how we interacted with them. And we were just finding out, both from the expert side and from us, the locals. Everybody was learning things about how people interact and how they come across because of their cultural orientation. So as a young person, I would say read a lot more when you get the opportunity to attend a cultural awareness program. Take it. It will do you a lot of good. But within every organization you enter as a new entrant, as a young person, find yourself a mentor. Find yourself someone that you can speak to and be heard. So that if the whole department, the whole business is not hearing you, you are heard somewhere. And don't shy away from that opportunity. The politics of it, I think you need to focus on your core deliverables and manage carefully the roots of politics. If you overly play politics, you are bound to crash because it's not sustainable. But you also need a certain level of politicking within the corporate world, whether you like it or not, to succeed. So find a fair balance in there where you are not setting yourself up for distraction, but you are also making sure that you are marketing yourself within the space you find yourself. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Yes, yes. So, Ato Edu, Junior, kindly ask your question and go for counseling.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Actually, it's not a question. I was just, first of all, I have to congratulate Samuel for a brilliant delivery. And just to add to his answers on the issue of workplace politics and also feeling intimidated as an entry level engineer or specialist. You know, he has given a very, very good answers to it already. Just to buttress it to what he has already mentioned, you know, when you enter as an entry level person, asking questions, I notice is a lot of issues with our culture itself in people asking questions, especially where they think that those around know better. But like Samuel has rightly said, you need to focus on your core deliveries. And if you don't understand anything, you're better off asking it now. And he has given you a hint. If you don't ask the questions now, years down the line, when you are supposed to be in a senior position, and you still don't understand those questions you did not ask, it will be very difficult to uh, go back and be asking those questions because then you feel more embarrassed. So I'd say that someone has given brilliant answers to your questions. In terms of politics, you're better off focusing on your job. Uh, my experience in the North Sea, in North Africa, and in the former Soviet Union, anywhere I've gone, I've kept out of politics. And like someone rightly said, those who go playing the politics, they crash finally, and you end up not being a good specialist, and then you end up probably losing your job as well as a result of trying to align yourself with workplace politics. So your focus should be on your core deliveries, learning and developing yourself so that you become a good professional. And even those who are in either side of politics, which you are not involved in, will recognize you as a good professional. And you find yourself, required at all times. So that's my contribution. Thanks very much. And Summer, well done.
Thank you, Senior. I appreciate the contribution.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for the contribution. Our last question will come from
I knew Senior when I was a trainee engineer. So he's a very seasoned oil and gas professional. We were all learning from them back in the days. Thank you, Ato.
Welcome.
So our last question will come from Kofua. Then we call it a day.
Okay, I was really glad you mentioned mentorship because my question had something to do about mentorship. So I want to ask, it's like a long question, so I'm putting it all in one so that we'll just end the session. It wouldn't be lengthy. So I want to ask, like, what's the common barriers to operational excellence in the oil and gas industry are besides politics, and how an individual in their early stage in the career can overcome it. And also, how should, like, if you were mentoring a student or a young professional in our industry, what's like practical steps would you advise them to follow on a day-to-day basis to build an operational excellence mindset from day one? And then the last will be that should employees always disclose mistakes, even if it's risk their jobs? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kofa. Picking it from the common barriers, I think going through the presentation we just had, one common barrier that we find within most organizations, and there are a lot of them, but I'll focus on one because it happens quite a lot, and I've experienced it in the last 2 weeks, for instance, is the silo mentality to operations. Within the same department, within the same company, there is so much of people thinking that they need to control their space. It's like back in the days when you used to be in JSS and you are writing the exams, you cover your paper, you don't want to share anything. Yes, you are helping to avoid cheating. But when you come into the workplace environment, you need to make sure that within departments, within teams, there is that collaboration. What happens mostly is with silo mentality, each team tends to think, or one team tends to think they've saved maybe $100,000 by focusing mostly on what theirs should be. I'll give you an example. I need a vessel to run my rig. I have CMP team whose core mandate is to try and cut down the costs. They struggle sometimes to appreciate the fact that there is what looking for the right word for it. There is give and take in the whole process. To you, you've saved on the cost of a vessel as a CMP person by $1 million through the whole process based on selecting one vessel over the other. But to me, as the operations person going to run the vessel, if that vessel causes me to shut down operations for a day, I've lost $1 million. That is one day. You, for the entirety of your campaign, you think you've saved $1 million based on day rates. For me, that is a day. If it's 2 days, I've gone into the negative because with 1 day, I've wiped out all your gains. We forget that it's the same pocket that all that money is coming from. So you can't live in a silo and expect to get the needed results. We have to be intentional about collaboration and avoiding that barrier to development, operational excellence. Now, you asked a question on full disclosure. There was one about operational excellence for a new person. Wrote it down, but sort of makes me. Please just
So the
hint me on
second,
that one. The
so
second
the,
question.
the second was that if you were to mentor a student or a young professional in the industry, like what sort of practical advice, like steps, would you advise them to follow from day one that they step into the industry? So that from day one, they can build an operational excellence mindset.
Good. So I would say when you enter any institution as a young person, own your space. Own your space. The only way you own your space is to know the ins and outs of that space. Once you know, you can then impact into developing that space into an operationally excellent space. It takes time, but learn your space and own your space. The focus once you enter into any space is to own it. When I joined Guinness back then in 2007, and as a young engineer, told myself I was going to learn everything within the utilities department, the ins and outs, within a period of 4 months. Within that period, I should be able to competently operate easy, tear apart, and assemble every piece of equipment within that space. It took a lot of sleepless nights, but I was just absorbing knowledge. I was reading all manuals. I was getting involved in all maintenance. I was making sure I was present. That helps you to build competency. In the end, one experience that always lives with me was 6 months down the line, we had a shutdown of one of our boilers. And the chief engineer, Mr. Okoatenka at the time, it was late into the night. He left me on my own, went to bed. He phoned me up at 2 a.m. and asked me, is it fixed? I said, yes, sir, it's fixed. Because he had that confidence in my ability over that 6 months I'd been there. And he wouldn't have had that confidence if I hadn't put myself to the task. I hadn't learned, I hadn't made myself competent enough to add value to the process. So it's key that we own our space in that regard. Full disclosure, I think even at your detriment, they say integrity is what we do when no one is watching. And so even at your detriment, you are better off disclosing if something has gone wrong, because it's very difficult to hide things for long. And with a good root cause analysis and assessment of situations, you would be wishing that you had spoken up earlier and disclosed all the facts associated with the failure than being found out to be hiding information. So I would say people, and as a leader, I trust people that come to me with their failures, and I'll support them to be better than people that hide failures, because then they never learn to improve and they are a risk to the organization. Hopefully that helps in answering all the questions.
Yes, please, it does. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the answers to the questions. Thank you to our senior engineers and more experienced ones for the recommendations and the suggestions as well. Thank you to the questioners too. We're grateful. Now we put a survey form in the chat. We'd like everyone to take some time to fill it out for us to get feedback and also do better in our next webinars. If there are no more questions or suggestions, we'll go ahead with our announcements and upcoming events.
Before the announcement, Sam, I just wanted to say thank you to the team for making time. Operational excellence is one broad subject, and it's very difficult trying to put it all together. So apologies if some of it overran, but it's a very important subject and we needed to drill into all of it. So thanks for making time and giving it the needed ears. I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much too for making time to be with us and sharing so much experience. We go ahead to talk about our announcements. I'll just read out quickly how to become a member, how to renew membership for the sake of new people who have joined us. So you visit the www.spe.org and sign in if you are new and create an account. You go to the membership section and select join or review membership. Choose professional membership. You are professional. If you're a student, choose student membership. New professionals may complete the application form. Existing members may review and update their information and go ahead to pay the registration or renewal fee of $45 or $35 for renewals. You receive a confirmation email once your application or renewal is completed. Log in to access your SC membership benefits. Yes, I mentioned earlier that there's a survey in the chat. Kindly fill it out for us to get our feedback. Let's go ahead with the announcement. Next, from the Career Guidance and Outreach Committee, we want to introduce a call out for mentors and mentees. Yes, we want to introduce a call out for mentors and mentees. There's a link for mentors, there's a link for mentees. There's so much to learn about industry professionals. There's so much to gain connecting with a professional, more experienced one as a student coming out of school. We want to encourage everyone to sign up. And for the experienced professionals, we are so grateful over the years for how much you have impacted young ones. We are expecting and we are hopeful that you will sign up for this year's one again. There's a Ghana Biennial International Summit Exhibition 2026 coming up in May 2026. The registrations are going on. We would share the link as soon as that's available. Let's go ahead with the next one. We will receive a vote of thanks from Kofoa.
On behalf of the career guidance team and outreach team, I'd like to express our sincere appreciation to our speaker, Engineer Samuel Kwesi Ofosu, for sharing such valuable insights and practical perspectives on operational excellence. It has been a very informative session. We also thank you all, the participants, for your active engagement and time. Thank you for staying with us from the beginning till now. Your contributions have made this session impactful and meaningful. The questions, the answers, the suggestions, and the add-ons, we are grateful for all of that. Thank you all for being part of today's webinar. Like he mentioned earlier in his submission, excellence cannot be materialized without people. The webinar wouldn't have been successful if we all didn't join in. So we are grateful for your participation. Thank you all for being part of today's webinar. And do have a blissful week.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next year is really packed for